Well, good morning, friend. How are you today? I was just getting on here. I'm going to do another presentation like I did the other day when I was showing you the Trinity in a visual form. My father had me this morning while I was out in my secret place. He told me that I was going to do one on marriage, a little presentation. And I've done it a couple times trying to use something else, but that the other day inspired me to use a poster board, and I have the back of the one I used the other day, right? So as you all know, I don't have any money or anything to go buy fancy things to do fancy presentations. I work with what I've got, which is virtually nothing. But anyway, I wanted to go over this with you, but before I do, I want to make one thing clear. I'm a man that's drenched in sin, and I've been given forgiveness. And I'm a man that was divorced. And the woman I married had 4 children. And the consequences to my behavior hurt them, right? But my father's forgiven me. I've asked for forgiveness from them, so I've got forgiveness. It's just the way it goes. So I'm going to talk to you about why it is that Jesus said that divorce was not acceptable, because they asked about divorce and Jesus said that you're not to get divorced, that Moses allowed that because their hearts were hard. And I'm going to give you some explanation on that, and I'm going to also explain, I'm going to start off by explaining a man and a woman in a relationship and why it is that a man was supposed to be ahead of the ship, right? You know, a ship needs a captain, so we're going to look at that. Okay, friends, so I put my glasses on because I couldn't see very well, right, when I'm doing this this stuff. I'm a very bad boat builder, right? If you see, I can't draw to save my life. But that's okay. I can explain a pretty pathetic drawing, and that's what really matters. So when you get married, it's not only like a ship, but the other thing to think about is it's like when 2 people get married. Okay, friend, well, I just drew 2 people on here, and you have to forgive me. I put him in pants and her in a dress just so you know, male and female. Not that it really matters. The point here is marriage, right? So, I'm like I said, I'm not a great artist, but my point will get across when you get done, and a lot of you won't like my point. But I'm doing this because my father told me to. So remember, there's no judgment in this. We're all imperfect, and we've been taught wrongly because we weren't thinking about what we were thinking about. Jesus told us to spend a lot of time in our secret place, and I didn't do that my whole life, friend. I was actually, let's see if I can do this without him because of the glare. Because I didn't spend a lot of time in my secret place, I was doing things not thinking about what I was thinking about, but God said that that's okay, that there's forgiveness for everyone here at the end of the age. But there is some things coming, and you can see America's at a 50% divorce rate. So there's a lot of things going on and a lot of reasons for it. So I'm going to explain a little bit of that to you today. So the ship, right? It can only have one captain, right? So there's the captain of the ship, right? So it's got a rudder back here and a propeller. So we'll just call that a propeller. Now, what happens if you try to put another captain in the ship? So when 2 people get married, 2 become 1, right? And now, in order to stay together and to make their relationship work, it's like boarding a ship together, because even though 2 become 1, you're still each your individual self, right? So you board a ship called marriage. This is the ship called marriage. So somebody has to be the captain. If not, you end up with 2 rudders and 2 steering columns, right? So what happens is you're going to run into priorities in your life, and you're going to run into careers. now they've got us working desperately. So when both people take careers and both of their careers are just as important as the other one, you end up with a problem if your careers take you two different paths. Maybe you live in Pennsylvania where I do, and this position comes open, your dream job shows up in California. Well, this ship can't split in two. If one of them's got the dream job here and then you're going to go to work at a dream job there, it's going to split the ship, right? Your ship's going to come apart. You can't go like that. And so the point here is that God did everything in all these laws for a reason. You can see it's at the end of the age, and all of these things you see are not going well. We didn't listen to what he said. We got all wrapped up in selfishness instead of love. You really ought to understanding the Trinity. I probably did a lot better job on that presentation than I might do on this one. But you'll be clear on what it is I'm saying at the end of that one, I can tell you, friend. And if not, it is what it is. Because there is a judgment coming, and you already know that. You already know the end of the age is coming, and we're going to have to answer for what we've done. And that's just the way it is. It's nothing personal, but we all have a free will choice that we've got to make. Okay? So when two become one, even though you're separate, you become one. But it kind of, just like in that ship, it ties you together, right? You're now tied together. Well, what happens is the purpose of marriage is to come to know love by experience. People that do what they feel like, they don't have a clue on what Jesus was saying, nor do they understand the comprehension of God. Because if you go by what you feel like, everybody's going to end up divorced. There's going to be nobody stays together, because I've never met a married couple that actually wanted to be married the whole time they were married. I'm divorced, friend. I'm giving you this long after it's too late for me. I'm now like a monk without a monastery, and I'm in my Father, and my Father's in me, and he dwells in me, and therefore I have committed myself to him because he's worth it. So the problem here is, and this is why selfishness seems like it's all okay at this point. So what? You get rid of your spouse and you get another one. Well, that's not true. One thing is, you're never going to really learn what true love is, because love is sacrifice. So when you just feel like leaving the relationship and you leave the other one, you were never one. It was always, it's putting you first, and that doesn't work. Now, you got to understand that Jesus was talking to a group of people that are not like the people in America. And so if you can't stay with a husband that's going to beat on you if he won't get help, right? You can't stay with a woman that is going to abuse you if she's not going to get help. There is problems here. This is about a godly relationship. So if you're a person that is not interested in the kingdom that Christ is talking about you can have, then you shouldn't be listening to me, because I'm telling you about the kingdom. The kingdom here and the purpose of the world is to come to know love by experience. And our relationships reflect that. But it's a free will choice. So I can't, if you hear this, you might be offended, but this isn't to offend you. It's to make you realize why, or to let you have an opportunity to take a look at maybe one of the reasons God did what he did. You don't have to believe me. You can call me a liar. It doesn't matter. Everybody always does. But I'm just going to give you this logic like I'm showing you now. So if you put a second propeller on that ship, it's not going to make it. The ship's going to be broken in half. There's going to be tension all the time. Nobody's going to be happy. So if you don't enter a relationship with a clear captain, then your ship's going to be a muck from the beginning. And us Americans like to lie to ourselves and say that this truth isn't true. I don't know what it's like in Europe. I don't know what it's like in Africa. I've never been there. I'm telling you, in America, they have taught us that selfishness is king and it's all about us. That's the biggest lie ever told, and because of that, we're destroying this country and we're destroying our families. So I'm just giving you a laid out thing here in hopes that maybe you might, if you're thinking about divorce because you're thinking of selfishness, and you're not thinking about your kids and your spouse, maybe I might save your marriage by getting you to think about what you're thinking about, because there is a price for all this at the end of the age. You just don't exactly understand how bad things get when people choose selfishness over love. Because to develop proper empathy, I worked in psychology. My father put me in psychology for a decade before he put me back out here to the wilderness to him to give me a higher truth and then explain it to you, knowing a lot of you were going to hate it. Okay, so when you get married, then you have a child. Okay, there's the child. There's a knot there. The child was to be created in the knot called marriage, right? So now here's the problem. If both of you are ship captains and you don't have somebody having that ship go together somewhere, if there isn't some sort of direction, when you start pulling, that knot tightens. It's going to hurt the child, right? So when we yell and scream in front of our kids, it's going to hurt our children. When we bash our spouse, it's going to hurt our children. We're teaching them all kinds of things about hate and selfishness and anger that they don't need to learn. We're supposed to be teaching them how to love, right? And I'm telling you, I did such a poor job at this. There's no judgment in this. I'm just giving you an explanation. And if you pull tight enough and then you divorce, you cut this child in half. Who was it? King Solomon? Yeah, King Solomon was the wise one. He's the one who threatened the child to cut the child in half. When you divorce, it cuts the child in half. It splits their allegiance. And not only that, but then they're not tethered anymore. When you're in a relationship, you have two people that keep that child stable. And when you separate, now you've got a child flopping around on a rope without a second mooring to keep them stable. And if I was a man that married a woman that already had children and their father was in their life, so that created a mess too, because now here I am, I'm going to make me this much less complicated looking dude, right? Now we've got all kinds of ties going on there, don't we? This one got broke, but it can't really break because the child's in the middle. So even though they're no longer together and I'm tied into this, in the end, that child feels all this. This child becomes this situation. You can't not have it. So this is why Jesus said not to get divorced. And then that's why he also said that if that a man that divorces or marries a divorced woman is creating adultery. So what happened was, and I'm going to be quite honest with you, the kids were young, they didn't know what they were doing. But there was a lot of conflict. Not only did they have their own thing, right? It doesn't matter about them. What matters is me and those children, because I'm not here to judge anybody. The purpose of the world's come to know love by experience. But those children, even though they didn't mean to and they didn't know what they were doing, and I didn't understand it at the time either, they saw me as the reason their parents weren't getting back together. As long as I was in the picture, their parents weren't going to get back together, right? And so when I look back at this and I look back at it with the Holy Spirit, he shows me that the reason that they quite often would have a dislike for me at that age when we got together was, and not all of them, one didn't, but the one, it's a long story. But this is kind of a general thing that I'm just giving you things to think about. You don't have to believe me. You don't have to accept this as true. But Jesus told you, and I'm just giving you the things the Holy Spirit gives me. I spend a lot of time in my secret place, and he gives me things, but the price of me getting the truth is I have to give it to you. So this is the truth he taught me. So those children suffered from all of that. Nobody meant to do it. Nobody meant to hurt the children. They just got stuck in the middle. That's the way it always works. And that's why it's so important that we don't put ourselves ahead of our children. And that's the purpose of the world and the purpose of a relationship. Two become one, and then the two of you create a child that you're supposed to love more than yourself. And therefore, your decisions as a unit are supposed to be about the child. But in America, that doesn't happen most of the time anymore. I mean, divorce rate's over 50%, or it was 50% years ago. I don't know what it is now. But I worked in the mental health system. And I also saw what happens to children that go through divorces. I've watched parents use their children as weapons, and because they're so selfish, and they're not meaning to be, but they are so focused on themselves and how they feel and what they want, that they completely forgot that they brought a life into the world that they're responsible for. And at the end of the age, if you're Christian, my father's going to be asking, why weren't you thinking about what you were thinking about? So I'm just here to tell you things, friend. I'm just here to tell you the truth so that you can think about this and think about, if you're already in this position, it's too late, right? You're already there. Now let's think about, how can we make it the best for the child? How can we make this work in such a way that the child doesn't suffer for it, right? That's what I'm saying. I'm not here to make a judgment. I'm saying that we need to become conscious about everything we do, about how it affects our neighbor. But if we can't even look at how it affects our children, we don't stand a chance at saving our neighbor and their children, right? And then when somebody's child ends up astray because they end up not developing the proper amount of empathy and love, well then, even if this isn't your family and you're over here and we don't help one another, their family's going to interact with yours. This is going to go bad. America is on the downfall. I don't know how to tell you to stop this. I've been telling you in video after video kind of what's coming. But this situation, this lack of love, this abundance of selfishness, and the corporations teaching us that it's all about us, is going to cost us as a nation, and God has been giving us warnings. Over and over, He has been warning us, and nobody's been listening, including me, friend. I was asleep. And then He had to, well, it's a long story. You can listen to my other videos, and you'll hear how it is that God and me have had this relationship and all kind of stuff. So I'm talking about this because there's some problems coming in this nation. As you can see, when love fades and selfishness, and we did it in God's name, my Father's going to make a judgment. I don't care what you say. You can go listen to Jonathan Cahn. We've been getting our harbingers. You can call me a liar. I don't care. I'm telling you, my Father created this world for the experience of love. When we put selfishness ahead of love, the whole world starts to go to hell in a handbasket. Friend, we're there. Hell is right around the corner because we have let these corporations not only teach us to be selfish about everything, we've allowed them to take over everything from our finances to our food supply. There's just no good future going on here, friend. So the more love we can create, the better off we are. So if you want to truly be selfish, well then you want to think about your neighbor and about God and about your children as much as you think about yourself. And if you don't do that, you're going to pay the ultimate price, because there's a time coming where everybody's going to pay their debt. Now, in Revelation, it does talk about some sort of rapture, or different places they talk about, but I'm not sure that it's the way they said. For one thing is, Jesus took the bad fish out of the net and left the good fish in, if the world's the net. Right? Jesus said that He was going to remove the tares and then the wheat would shine. Right? So understand, I'm not understanding the way things, God has showed me a lot, but He doesn't show me everything the way it is. So I'm not saying that those of you that are truly in the spirit of love aren't going to leave. There are many of you that are out feeding the hungry, clothing the naked, and visiting the sick and in prison. You have put love ahead of selfishness, and you are truly in relationship with my Father through the Holy Spirit. The problem is, if He leaves you in the mess, eventually your love's going to might be overcome by fear, right? So I don't understand how my Father's going to do all this, but he is going to do it. And America is Mystery Babylon, and you can see that. There's just no way that it's not. And you can say what you want and pretend what you want to pretend, but in the end, you're going to see that this nation declared itself one nation under God, a Christian nation, and Christ is one who breaks the seal, and he's going to judge this nation. And I don't care if you believe that or not, friend. You've already been getting judgments. You can see it coming. We can see what they're doing. There's a whole thing going on, and I've told you in other videos. If you want to listen to that, you can listen to that. I've explained a lot of this stuff of exactly what's going on and how to figure it out. But today, I want you to understand that this is all about love and relationship. That's what it is. It's about love. Love isn't a feeling, it's an action that creates an experience. Faith is an action that creates an experience. James said faith without works is dead. Jesus said the dead limbs get cut off at the end of the age, gathered up and tossed into the fire. So you're either going to be a fruitful limb or a dead limb. That's your choice, but it is what it is. So I'm explaining all this to you, even though I don't want to, as I always tell you, because everybody hates me for giving you the truth. But that was the price. The price of getting the truth is to give the truth. And anybody that has the truth and doesn't give the truth becomes a liar. You become like the serpent, a half-tongued wiggler, a snake. Right? That's the serpent in your head telling you it's okay to just go ahead and let other people suffer while you glorify yourself. And there is a price for that at the end of the age. So now is the time to seek the kingdom first. Accept Christ died on the cross for you so that you can be forgiven. But that gives you the right to put your thoughts before God. And then when you put your thoughts before God, then you'll be in a much better condition because you'll have received forgiveness. That was the problem. That's the reason Christ died. Remember Adam and Eve hid behind the leaves? That's representation of them hiding their thoughts. Remember God walked through the garden saying, Adam and Eve, where are you? Now let's fess up here, friend. God knew exactly where they were. These stories are to help you understand a story about a truth, right? So I'm not saying that they're not true, but I'm not saying that they're exactly the way you understand, because it's clear that if God knew the end in the beginning, he knew exactly where Adam and Eve were. It doesn't matter whether they were hiding, and since he's of consciousness, you can't hide from him, period. He's seen every thought you've ever had. He knows everything you've ever done. He knows everything you're going to do even before you knew you were going to do it. My Father is so great, I can't explain him to you. I've been with him in the beginning, and therefore I want to know him in the end. And I understand that in the beginning there was only God, and he created all this for love. So I'm going to be the love for him because that's what he created me for. God is. And because God is, he creates us. And he is far greater than I, right? And he is. But if I'm not here, he still is. But if he isn't, then I'm not. Because he's my creator. And he created me for love. So I give him love. That's what faith is. Faith is love without proof, right? You have faith in your spouse to get you through. You have faith in God. You have faith in your family or whoever it is that you have. I know a lot of you have gone through and you didn't have a family to depend on, and this is not an easy world to go through, but I want you to also, I'm going to bring this up because I just brought that up. I want you to go look in the letter to the Church of Philadelphia, and you're going to see that it says, to he that overcomes, I will make a pillar in the temple of my God, and he will go out no more. So there's a whole lot more going on here. It's a very deep rabbit hole, and I can't explain it all to you. He just gives it to me, and I can give you one thing at a time. The more I put together, the less you'll hear. And sometimes I know things, and then he takes it from me and gives me something else. He told me to be like the birds of the air and the lilies of the field. I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed. He gives me what I need the day I need it. So today, he told me to explain this to you a little bit. Right? I didn't do a fantastic job, but you're getting the picture. You get why it is that this is going on and why he said not to do it. So it just is what it is. There's no judgment about it. There's forgiveness. But it's time to choose the kingdom, which is to come to know love by experience, and to choose God over the world, which is to choose love over selfishness. If you don't make that choice, you will pay your debt. Christ told you that. It's in every parable he ever said. He told you that the seed that did not fall in fertile soil died. This is all written. So he said a slave to sin has no permanent place in the kingdom. He said by your words you'd be acquitted, and by your words you'd be condemned. If he's your king, don't call him a liar. If you're an atheist and you don't believe in God, well then none of this has any meaning to you, because you don't believe there's a law and there's any consequences coming for what you've done. There are. And it's not that my father wants to. The son's the king, so that go watch the Trinity one I made the other day, where I put some kind of explained out the Trinity for you so that you can understand the way this works. Because right now, most Christians think Jesus is love, fear God. That's about to flip. Jesus breaks the seal. My Father was love in the beginning, he'll be love in the end. Christ is king. He'll judge you so the Father doesn't have to. My Father created all this for love. That's the way this works. And so if you want love, give love. But if you judge, you will be judged. By the measure in which you judge, you will be judged. So you call other people haters and all that. In my videos, I call Pharisees snakes, meaning Christian Pharisees, these people that aren't telling you the truth. I'm not judging them. I love them as much as I love you and as much as I love me, because I got to love all of you in order to love all of God, right? Because I'm in the Father and the Father's in me. You're in the Father and the Father's in you. Go watch that Trinity thing so that you can understand this better. So I have to love everybody and forgive them for they know not what they do. But Jesus did not judge the sinners, and neither do I. But Jesus judged the Pharisees, and so will I. So I'm not here to glorify the church. I'm here to tear it down. You're either going to return to Christ the way you were supposed to. You go read Jesus, which is the words in red, in a red letter edition, and you start doing what he asked, or because the church age is about at its end, if you haven't been able to figure that out, friend. It's the end of age of Pisces, the beginning of Aquarius. Aquarius they call the age of thought. Christ has thought about what he was thinking about because he's the Father's son. He taught me to think about what I'm thinking about, but let him think for me, and therefore I can truly think, because I'm not always hiding my thoughts from God and trying to act like everything's okay when it's not. So I can now look at the plank in my own eye, because my Father, even though it's still there, I still shove it back in every now and then. The moment I do, I go, God, look, I put that plank in my eye. Would you please remove it? And he says, sure, son, let me do that for you. But I spend a lot of time in my secret place. If you want the kingdom, you're going to need to spend some time in your secret place. If you don't spend time in your secret place, you're not going to find this kingdom, and you're not entering it. So you either want to be in relationship with God through the Holy Spirit, or you don't. It's a free will choice. I can't make it for you. Christ not only told you how to do it, he showed you. You've got to look. Everything he told you to do, he did by example. It's a hidden message there that only the Holy Spirit can testify to you about him. So go get in relationship with the Holy Spirit. All right, friend, well, just know I love you because my Father loves you, period. No judgment here, friend. All right? So may God bless you and yours.